Mandy Dye, what's going on?
This is it. You see it. How are you?
Excellent. It's
Good.
good to see you here.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
So, high school English teacher.
Yes.
We're going to drop it right away. Marquette Marathon winner, what year?
2018 fall.
2018. So, endurance athlete
Mm-hmm.
and yogi.
Mm-hmm.
And what else? What am I missing?
Oh gosh, organic farmhand.
Traveler.
Oh, I do travel
Pretty cool.
quite a bit. Yep. I read, I write, I have a blog. It's pretty low key, but travel writing. Other things.
Pretty low key
It's low key.
for now.
Yeah, it
Right?
started as a project with my students. I threw it up online, and so I go through the process of taking what start as journal entries, typically while traveling, and then I polish them a little and throw them on a Wix site.
Right on.
Yeah.
So, what's going on right now in your world as far as 2019? We're in September. Fall's kind of underway.
Oh, enjoying fall. Favorite time of year, hands down.
Really?
Yes. Not your favorite?
Eh,
I
they're all
love
good.
the transition. I love the reminder to let things go, invite change in. That's not something that I would say is natural to me. I fight change a little bit. But I just finished kind of a hard training cycle. I ran the Marquette 50 and promised myself I would take a little time off. So I took a month of hanging low key, doing some more biking than running. So I'm kind of amping that back up, getting back in the yoga studio. As is true for the fall, I'm kind of focused in school, so reading a lot of nonfiction stuff, listening to a lot of podcasts. But yeah, that's kind of what's going on right now.
Yeah, it is transitional. I've been hearing that a lot lately, that it's kind of a transitional time.
It is.
And have you ever found that um, you've resisted the transition to fall, and that's ended up with not the greatest or outcome?
Oh, yeah. I can
Yeah.
say last fall was probably one of those years. And someone just asked me at work this same question where I feel so ready for fall this year. I think because my summer was so full
Right.
that it feels really natural to kind of like let things slow down a little bit. But yeah, last fall I was not ready for the transition. I was still holding on to summer and being adventurous and, well, being more free than I am during the school year.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. When we hold on to the season that we want it to be, like we want it to be summer forever, there's like this like letdown when really it's a beautiful thing going on right now.
It is. It is. I agree.
So the Marquette 50,
Yeah.
that sounds legit.
It
Sounds like a
was
lot of running.
it was 5 hours of running, but
Okay.
hands down the coolest race that I have ever done.
Yeah.
Great community, great trails. We ran all over Marquette. North Trails, the Harlow section of trails on the shoreline. We went up Hogback Sugarloaf, top of the world, bareback. So
Right.
lots of geography change going on. It was cool.
Yeah. I mean the scenery out there is unmatched.
It is.
Unmatched.
It is. And I think it parallels. In running, we talk about pain caves. Like they're pretty inevitable, and you learn to work through them. But the way that race is laid out, there are sections of the course where you're in old pine stands, and so the
Uh-huh.
ground is really soft, and there is this part of you that wants to push through these sections of the race. But you also have that psychological component of I'm only 20 miles in. Can I push? Do I have enough to get me, through to mile 32, knowing that you've got 1,200 feet of climbing ahead of you? So it was really kind of cool to think back over my thoughts for each component of the race and the overlay of where I was at on the trails.
That's so you're talking like that real soft ground that you can really kick some ass.
Yeah, between Wetmore Beach
Yeah.
and the Songbird portion of trails just past Little Presque.
Right. Where it's that like pine needle,
Oh,
real
yeah.
soft. So you can give her.
Feels great.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the whole time you're out there giving her, you're like, is this a good idea?
Right.
I don't know if this is a good idea. This is what I'm
Right.
doing.
Why do you compete?
Why do I compete?
Yeah.
Oh, that is such a good question. Because I think I like the training more than I do the competing.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Right?
It is fun. I am always surprised at how competitive I am once I get out there.
Right.
And since leaving competition in college, compete 3 or 4 times a year, so definitely not as much as I was as a college athlete. But it's also a great reminder that the grit that you put into training pays off, but also that your body can just do really cool things.
Hmm.
Like my takeaway from that race is I got to do that. This is this thing that I get to do. I'm able
Right.
to do. Yeah.
Right. Not something you have to do. I hear a lot of people sign up for running events to somehow motivate some giant change in their life.
Mm-hmm.
Like they want to go couch to 5K or couch to 50K
For
or what
sure.
have you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's healthy? I think it's a healthy way to go, or does that work for
Ooh.
you? Does competition motivate you?
I certainly think it motivates me. And I think when we talk healthy, totally depends on what's healthy per person. If we're
Mm,
taking someone who's living a sedentary lifestyle and the motivation they need is a couch to 5K, I would love to see that happen because that's moving towards that person's health. I started running in 6th grade. I was in a myriad of sports. Why running, which I would say is probably the most painful sport that I ever tried, is the one that stuck is beyond me. But is that healthy? Yeah, I would say that it is. It's definitely not my motivation. Similar to what we were talking about before we started, I think that every person has a narrative, but I also think every runner has a narrative.
hmm.
For some people, they replace a form of addiction with running,
Yeah, it's
which can be a form of addiction in and of itself. For me, I often relate it to it's like my spirituality. That is how I meditate.
hmm,
And I need that daily. It makes me a better person, it evens me out, which I'm sure some people could say is a form of addiction.
potentially. It's an expression,
100%.
right? An expression of something greater, right? Like letting it carry through, pushing it through you through a run.
Oh, yeah,
It's amazing.
it is.
It's
And
just
that's
a flavor, right? Everybody's got a style
yeah,
of doing it.
for sure. And it's changed. I now have a dog. I have a 2-year-old lab, but that has added an element to my running that I didn't know that I was missing, but now I would feel incomplete if I didn't have her with me. Um, I often describe it as like I get to go on an adventure with this awesome puppy. I mean, she sees the world as it's brand new all of the time,
Yep.
every single day. And it reminds me to look at that hour as an adventure as well. Not just this thing that I do, but I get to check out of reality and into what Marquette has to offer.
Yeah. But you are still in reality,
I am
right?
most of
Is
the
it
time.
ever, what would you say the signs of escapism are when it comes to these? I mean, running, see it in biking,
Oh.
see it in all kinds of different activities. People want to check out. People
Mm-hmm.
want to like punch out of their life real quick and come back later.
So, escapism in people or in me?
We can't really talk about other people.
Okay, so I would say when I'm using it as a replacement behavior. So let's say that there's an unfavorable emotion that I have that I don't want to feel. And I know that if I just go for a 30, 45-minute run or an hour long run, I don't have to feel that emotion.
Mm,
I would say that's a form of escapism. Or if I don't want to grade those papers or do some of the other bureaucratic things that come with my teaching job that I need to do, put in a run. I still feel productive. I'm still working toward a goal,
yeah.
right? But I think that's where a yoga practice has helped me as well because as much as running helps me zone out, yoga brings me into the present. So I
Hmm.
learned to focus on, okay, that to do list isn't going anywhere. Even if you go for a run, that to do list is not going anywhere. And I can reorganize. Here's what needs to be done first, kind of like triage. And then we can work our way down that. So, yeah, I would say a fundamental symptom of escapism is looking at whatever it is we're doing as replacing what we don't want to
Right.
feel.
Finding a balance. That's cool to find a balance through yoga. It's a great balance as far as the physical is
Mm-hmm.
concerned,
Yeah.
right? I mean, right? Does any of the things studies published about knees and hips and yada yada yada, does that ever concern you with the amount of running that you do?
That is a very common question. And in fact, when I tell people I am a runner, and then they ask, of course, for your accolades, oh, what do you run? And
And you just say a lot.
I just run a lot. I run marathons and ultras. I just run. Yeah. Um, does it worry me? Every time that comment is brought up to me, you can find research that substantiates, yes, it makes things worse, or it increases your bone density.
Right. It goes both ways.
It totally does. So I think it's more about balance. I also know that as a runner, I lift 2 or 3 days a week to help strengthen what might otherwise be lost. I go to yoga for that flexibility. But I'm also just very aware of it. I'm running more on soft ground and trails than I ever have because after my last road marathon,
It's conscious. It's becoming more aware.
very much so. After the last road marathon, it took me almost 4 weeks to feel like myself again. I was like, ooh, that's a cue. This just doesn't jive with you anymore. Let's move into something else. And so then I loaded my next training and racing cycle with trail running.
Right on.
Yeah,
Necessary.
very much so.
Right. And do you find that because you travel in the summer, this is cool, right? That as a teacher, you have the summers off,
Yeah.
right? And it seems like you take full advantage of that.
It's been
Like to
learned.
the best of your ability. You know, you found a way to travel pretty long term.
Yeah, absolutely. And it feels necessary. One, it feels like a way that I can take experience, bring it back to my students. I need that. But it's always good to remember that there is life beyond the bubble we create in the day to day. And then I don't know, I just am wanderlust. I've got an adventurous spirit. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it just feels like second nature to go out and travel.
Keeps it fresh.
It does. And so that's something I've been doing. I think the summer of 2011 was the first summer that I did an extended trip of 3 weeks or more.
Right.
And so then every summer after that.
So 8 years, every summer you just kind of pick up and go.
Yeah, the first few were with my best friend and former roommate from college. And we were leaving from Marquette as NMU students and traveling all summer, usually finding people we knew all over the western United States and staying with them, getting a rental car. And then there were 2 or 3 summers in a row where she was between jobs, living in San Francisco or here in Michigan, and I was between jobs in Montana and Minnesota, and we were unemployed. We got to June and didn't have jobs. We decided we're going to sling applications and resumes from somewhere. We might as well do it from the road. So we set an itinerary, set out to travel, and we would pick 1 or 2 days a week. We would connect to the internet and we would send resumes and apply for jobs, and just decided that the road trip would end when we either had a job, got an interview, or we ran out of money.
Did that make you all scared?
100%. I actually have a blog post about this. It was terrifying, especially because there's no example for how to do this.
No.
There's no one telling you.
No, this isn't in the books.
No, I don't even. There may be a book on this, and if there was, it was never given to me. Like, I haven't read it. It also, as much as I have wonderful family support, not something that made them comfortable at all.
Right.
It terrified them. So yeah, it was scary, but I just figured if I got to be with my best friend and be completely lost, but be in beautiful places and discover parts of myself that I hadn't met yet or didn't know existed, that really wasn't being lost, that was being found. And I can see pieces, parts of the patchwork from, oh yeah, I remember this time in Utah or Nevada or California where I learned something in that experience that I have needed in teaching, in relationships. So it definitely taught me to trust the process.
Right.
The universe will kind of unfold for you.
That's a big takeaway.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah.
And sometimes can be easy to forget.
Especially when you're scared.
Right.
Yep. Or your car breaks down.
Yeah, there's just all kinds of stuff going on all the time.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yep.
so it's important to have something to reflect upon that really made a difference for you. It's like that breakthrough. And would you say that you're able to kind of stay consistent with, who you are here in Marquette and who you are on the road? I find that, sometimes traveling, one could be like real crazy once they hit the road, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Funny that you asked this question. I think I'm still trying to find the answer to that. So
Okay.
Years prior, when I started teaching, so I'm in my 6th year teaching. So when I was still teaching and traveling in the summer, I always knew that I was a teacher. So I was still reading books about education. It was always in the back of my mind that when August came, oh, I'd have to buckle back down and go back to school. So I don't know that I got crunk on vacation. I mean, I definitely adventured and I ran and I hiked and I camped and it was awesome. But this is the first summer and I traveled mostly solo that I didn't feel like a teacher once. I got to our first in-service day in late August and I was like, oh yeah, this is the thing I do. Oh man. Because I discovered, again, yet another layer of this is the person that you are. This is what you like to do. So I don't have a specific answer for you.
Wow. Because it's
Yeah.
not a mask at this point,
Ew.
right?
It's just another layer.
You've kind of like absolved the mask into your skin.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
just
there you
like,
go.
that's so cool.
It
And
is.
you find yourself traveling mostly out west. You're just like mountains, take me to the Rockies, getting out there. Is that
So, to answer that question, I'm going to ask you a
is
question.
that the MO, right? Go ahead.
So, have you found places that they just resonate with you? They are so beautiful or so much a fit for you that it kind of makes your heart ache a little bit?
You know, only once really. We're here.
That here.
Yeah, we're right. We're here right
Yeah,
now. Yeah.
right? So, this is one of those places for me as well. And then I traveled out west, and I don't know what it is about the Rockies, but it was another one of those places that just ached with beauty. And I remember it was in June of 2017. I returned to a place in Montana that I had lived in 2015, and I was with my best friend, AJ. We were sitting on the Hungry Horse Reservoir playing with my puppy, who was 6 weeks old at the time, 8 weeks old. And I just looked at her and I was like, this is my place. Like, this is yet again one of those places. Yeah. So for right now, it's the Western United States. I like that there are fewer people. I like that it has a very similar rugged individualism to the UP, which, in my opinion, brings people and communities closer because we understand to live in those places, you have to reach out, you have to ask for help, but you have to be tough.
Mm,
Yeah. And so I like that thread. It's very similar out west, but I haven't seen much of the East Coast. And so I can't say that it will forever be the out west until I get to the East Coast. And maybe there's another place out there that just calls me home.
right. Could be a gem.
Oh, I'm
Always.
sure there are gems out there.
Always.
Oh, yeah.
That's cool to keep the perspective fresh because it is easy to kind of get carried away here saying like the best place ever, you know,
Oh, because it's pretty rad.
best place ever, you know,
Yeah.
best day ever here in the UP, don't you know? And that's like great. Do you find that you appreciate this place more sometimes when you go, when you get away?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that works, vice versa.
What things do you notice about this place that aren't anywhere else?
I think it would be really easy to say the water.
Mm,
Like, this beautiful body of fresh water. But there are some smells here. The lake in the early morning sunrise that doesn't exist anywhere else. Or the way that hot pine needles smell when you're on top of the world or on hogback or even along some of our rivers. Like, yes, you can sit in a pine stand out west, but it doesn't smell the same as when it's mixed with that sweet freshwater smell. Yeah, definitely. I also like from where I live, within 2 miles from my door, I can be on single track.
mm.
I can put my kayak in the big lake or a river from where I live. I can snowshoe and fat bike
Right.
easily. So the access, like it's a pretty condensed area, but if you want to recreate, this is definitely the place.
Right. And if you were to do that out west, it would be much more commuting, it seems. From what I've heard, I don't really know. To settle down out west, from what I've heard, it's a lot more commuting
It certainly can
for
be.
activities.
Yeah. You can find, I think you could find a place where you can do 2 or 3 of those things.
Right.
But I would also say that things are on a much more grand scale. That if you were to take your bike to the mountain, you're going to shred all day on the mountain. Where here, you can hit your favorite 2 or 3 trails for a few hours and then pick your next activity and just kind of flow into it. So it looks a little different.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. That's so cool. I'm just starting to realize that, been here 5 years, and it takes a little bit of getting acquainted,
It does.
right? And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I was always thinking like, New Zealand would be great because you can skateboard. No, you can snowboard at the top of the mountain, and then when you get down to sea level ish, you can longboard,
Mm-hmm.
skateboard, high speed skateboarding down the other side, and then end up at sea level on the ocean, grab your surfboard, and you can do it all three in one day,
True that.
right? I can't say that's possible here just because we don't have the elevation for the snowboarding,
Yeah.
but there's surfing, there's mountain biking, there is cross country skiing, there's rock climbing, there's
Right? The list
hiking.
is
It's
so
it's
long.
vast.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's also true to say that what you experience as your Marquette is different than my Marquette, and I think that's really cool about a place.
Mhm. Mhm.
You know, if do you trail run ever?
Oh yeah,
Okay,
for
so
sure.
when you're on your bike, you experience a trail very differently than you do when you're on foot,
Big time.
right? And sometimes you're not even on the same trail because they offer something different, completely different experience. Where I think if we lived in a city that was flat, that was largely based on a consumer driven economy, for the most part, we'd have pretty homogenous experiences. We'd have the same forms of entertainment to pick from.
Mhm.
I don't know that that is true here.
That's a really cool way to look at it.
Yeah.
What did you say about being driven, economic driven? What did you say?
Oh, so like consumer driven.
Consumer driven economic?
Yeah, so I've been to a few places in Florida and I have loved ones that I adore who live there.
Yeah.
But I was blown away by being in clusters of, I think at one point they probably were their own independent cities and now they're
Just
just
like
sprawled together.
subdivisions,
Right?
right?
So within 20 miles, we'd gone past three or four cinemas, similar chains of clothing stores, putt-putt golf. And so I think, okay, people come here and they vacation, and if they were in any one of these three cities, which now kind of merge together as this sprawling metropolis, they could go to a movie and go to putt-putt. And anyways, consumer driven, but it looks pretty much the same.
Mm-hmm.
But when you come here, I don't think people come to Marquette for that. We don't have that here. So we experience it much differently.
Mm-hmm.
You were saying that surfing, not a thing that I do, but I love to experience the water in my kayak.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. Like get all the elements too. Get
Mm-hmm.
all the elements involved.
Yeah,
That's super cool too.
for sure.
Right. Um, kind of want to talk about the people too, like the people of Marquette. Do
Mm-hmm.
you notice unique characteristics in like Midwestern, hardworking,
So nice.
integrity, kind
Yeah.
people?
So, I would say we're pretty gritty.
Yeah.
Passion, perseverance
Yeah.
through a lot of adversity to
Uh-huh.
live here. Absolutely. I would say the Midwest in general, very, very nice people. I
Yeah.
spent some time in Boston. I ran the Boston Marathon in 2017 and stayed in an Airbnb with a bunch of other runners. And of course, the couple who had hosted us would have breakfast with us in the morning. And one of the characteristics that this couple kept pinpointing me as having, and my friend who's from Minnesota, was just like, "You're so nice. You use manners all the time." And I'm like, "Yeah, I think like maybe that's not kosher everywhere, um, but I definitely think I used this phrase earlier, rugged individualism. We understand that living here isn't necessarily the easiest, but we want to be here. And those who don't want to be here or who can't withstand our winters don't stay here."
Correct. It goes a long way.
Yeah.
And you dip out for tourist season, right? And there's a lot of people who come here in the summertime.
And they think it is the greatest place, which it
Yeah.
is.
Right.
Um,
But they're out. They're not like
but
in
then we're
it.
happy to see them go. And they're probably pretty happy to leave when they see our snow pile up as well.
For sure.
Yeah. But I think I was very close to where you live, actually. There used to be a motel run by an older couple, and it's no longer standing. They couldn't sell it. They didn't want to pay property taxes on it. So my understanding was that they just leveled it out, which was really sad to see because my parents had always stayed there. But one thing that I remember that older gentleman saying is, I lived here because I liked the people, and there were so few people who could embody the qualities that they needed to stay here that everyone else left.
Mm-hmm.
And this was, I was in college, so maybe 2012, but he's like, oh man, now more people are moving here, and they want those qualities, and they're working to those qualities. He's like, but I just don't have the patience for people who are trying to have those qualities. So he was going to retreat further inland. But I think it's really cool to see the layers of awareness up here, where he knew, like, these people are going to come in and they're going to be awesome people and they want to live here. But I'm just going to let them spend some time building those qualities. So I do think we draw like-minded people up here.
Right. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that learning does have to occur on one's own, right?
It does.
Doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Not reading about it, not talking about it.
When the learner is ready, the teacher appears.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And the teacher can come in any form. Right? It doesn't have to be a person.
True.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
It could be
Often
it
is
could be a
not.
moment.
Mm-hmm.
And the teacher comes in many forms. Right?
Yeah.
How old are you?
28.
28.
You gave
So-
me the squinty eyes there for a second.
I didn't know.
Oh.
So
Oh,
it's
yeah.
yeah. How old are you? Question mark. That was the squinty eyes. The question mark.
Almost 30.
Right.
Yeah.
So is that a challenge in your occupation?
It has been, and it's funny. So that's actually a question I don't answer for my students. It started out as kind of a ha-ha funny, like our teacher won't tell us how old it is, or how old she is, but I think more than that, age is a number, and the wisdom that you acquire in those years can vary from person to person. But I often think we place a lot of importance on it societally.
Mm.
So I just giggled when you asked me because I was like, at 28, like, what does one expect me to have? Like, what wisdom would one expect me to have? But it is less an issue now. I think after teaching in this district for 4 years, but having taught for 6 years, there's something to be said about the experience that you have. And so to tell students, I've been teaching for 6 years, they understand that you've done this before, you've learned lessons, you've tried things out, so they trust you a little bit more in the learning process. Or they're more willing to go along with you into something that might feel uncomfortable at first. It's saying, she's done this. She's an institution. We can trust her.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's where experience, it pays more than any kind of education.
Mm-hmm.
It pays any more, you can't talk about experience. It speaks for itself.
Yeah. You have to earn it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I will say that I have found great mentor teachers who have been teaching for 20, 25, 30 years, and I rely on them more for the wisdom and how to navigate school systems or the questions to ask when we're bargaining. So there are pitfalls to only being in the system for 6 years, but I think that's where our collective wisdom comes into play.
Mm-hmm.
I also appreciate my age right now where I can take that wisdom from seniored teachers who are very close to retirement, take these units or lessons or ideas that they've taught, but use the energy that I have right now to bring it to the forefront, revamp it a little bit.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Throw a fresh spin on it.
Yeah, because I'm sure, that at some point I will be that senior teacher passing things off to someone who's ready to put that fresh spin on it.
Mm-hmm. So what are the major pitfalls that you see in institutionalized education right now?
This was also a question that was asked to me on Friday by a
Dang,
new student.
you
I
know all
know.
these interviews?
I know. I was actually really impressed to see such a young pre-service teacher asking this question. One of them, I would just use the word fun. I try to bring fun into the classroom, breathe life into what I do, and do something that is active.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we've done a really great job adding in all of these things we want our students to know, these proficiencies that they should have when they leave us, but we haven't taken anything out. We just keep adding to here's this list of important things, and that's great because we're doing research on education and we are trying to do best practice things. But I think we're overwhelming our kids. And I don't know that every day is fun for them. Not that it has to be. I also think that when we push for something that's supposed to look homogenous, so a curriculum that every public school should be using, we lose a little bit of what makes us us. A little bit of that UP flavor or that culture or some of the skills you might learn in a Western state in the United States.
Sure.
Yeah, there's not as much room for that. While teaching in Montana, I was teaching very little kids, so 3 to 5, maybe 6 years old, preschool, and then pre-kindergarten. But we were outdoor based, so we were spending 4 or 5 hours a day outside. So it was really wonderful to learn, okay, I'm taking this math concept or this reading concept or this imaginative play concept outside of the classroom. How do I do that when we're in the woods or we're using growing food as an example? So it totally flipped my understanding of what education could look like. So I think if we could make education a little less of an institution and marry some of those ideas together, game changer. Total game changer.
And yeah, right now it's broken down language arts, social studies, science, and math,
Yep.
right? And so those four categories dictate what the kids are to learn, and there's like benchmarks and benchmark tests and a curriculum.
Yes.
Do you find it difficult to look at a lesson plan and be like, this is seriously what I have to teach these kids right now?
So early on, it was overwhelming. Yes.
Right.
What I've learned to do, and this was something that was taught to me, is okay, what are you passionate about? What concepts do you have to teach? Where can you connect those two things? Lay out what you'd like to teach, and then look at your standards. More often than not, if you are teaching from something that you know is research based and that you are passionate about and you are fired up about, you can take those standards and plug them in. Now, that is not always the case. It's in my English standards that I have to teach Shakespeare. I love me some Shakespeare, but he's not the easiest thing to teach to 11th and 12th grade students. So there is a little bit of pushback with that, but it's less overwhelming now than it used to be.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Well, as you get more acquainted with it, do you feel like sometimes it's like, what if you had a kid come to you and they said, let's say post grad, and they said, I just went through high school and I don't feel like I got anything out of my high school education. I don't know what to do. What would you tell them to do? Or just,
What would I tell them? Well, one, I would say, like, let's find a mentor in the community.
okay,
And then always reflect. I think it's impossible to have gone through 12 years of education without learning anything, even if that is
we hear that,
how do I cheat the system? Like, how
right?
do I cram to study for a
Like
test?
skate by
That's a skill that we need sometimes in life,
with me,
right? Adverse
and,
situation. How do I just skate through this? I
right?
really don't want to be here. How do I get through it? So there are usable skills, but I was reading a student's writer's notebook on Friday. I had them turn them in. And one of their prompts for the week was what my education system has taught me. We had a mentor text. We used a Sherman Alexie piece. And this student wrote almost exactly that. My education has taught me how to cram at the last minute to ace a test, but go back 4 weeks later and not know what was on that test. They had made the remark, if I had to go back and take sophomore biology right now, no way I would pass that class. My education has taught me how to double dip. So where can I write for one class, use it later for another? So research paper in English, tie those concepts over to social studies. So it did make me stop and think, okay, is what I'm teaching meaningful? And then real world skills. Can I connect what I am teaching them to a skill they can tap into later? And then make it transparent for them so they don't feel like all I do in English is read, write, speak, listen. I want you to think and then have skills. Yeah.
So critically thinking is finding unique solutions to common problems.
Okay.
And that's how I've heard it put. Seth Godin puts it that way.
Okay.
Finding unique solutions to everyday problems.
Yeah.
So basically, an open-ended question. It's everyday things that we have to face. Maybe broad at first glance, but finding one's individual way of solving that problem.
Yeah.
That is a method that we use in business, in life, in education,
Mm-hmm.
but it seems very looked over in terms of basic public education. Have you found a way to kind of bring that out of students and have them critically think in their own way to solve the same problem?
Yeah. So there's a project that we do in my class called 20 Time. Google used it. That's actually how we got the Post-it note, and that's how we got the Gmail suite, if you didn't know. Large corporations, large businesses will allow their employees 20% of their time to pursue an independent idea to solve a problem that exists in the business sector or within their corporation.
Mm.
So, my proposition to seniors, we take their last quarter and they get to design what that looks like, but they need to learn a new to them skill, have an English language arts tie in, make a product. Yeah, we're going to call it a product. We're just going to say product.
Sure.
That benefits someone outside of.
Could be a service,
That's why I was going to say yes.
product, service, either way.
Absolutely. It needs to benefit someone other than themselves. And then it needs to like kind of be a legacy. Like how can we tap back into this later to see how it went? And it often turns out that they create a website where they publish all of these pieces of their journey. But that is the ultimate test of critical thinking. And the way that I describe it, did you have a capstone project when you graduated from college?
I had multiple capstones, but the one and only, yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
It was Unity. It was talking about Unity.
There you go. And so I pose it to them as let's take K-12. It needs to be a culmination, right? The capstone of what you've learned. They blow me away. But I love to get to that last day of
That's
senior year.
legit.
They do.
I didn't know what you
year.
were gonna say. That's righteous.
Oh my gosh, it's going to give me goosebumps.
Yeah.
They blow me away because they start and they're like, I can't do this. This is really hard. This is too vague. And I'm like, welcome to life.
Right?
Life is sometimes really vague. And there have certainly been times in my life where I'm like, I don't have the skills for this, which is not true. You have to reframe the way that you look at it. And so as they start to brainstorm, they're like, wait a second. I have all of these ideas. I have all of these great skills. And then they just put them together and the light bulb goes off.
Right. But they have to be challenged.
They do.
That's a challenge when you just open. What is passion? And it's like, that's it?
Oh yeah.
Give us something more, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
It's up to you,
Mm-hmm.
It is what you make it
Oh yeah.
at the end of the day.
And so I do this with them because I want them to know like I'm still vulnerable. I'm
Cool.
still learning. And it's terrifying to have, so I have 4 sections of seniors, about 130 kids, looking at you like, so what are you going to produce? Because we Shark Tank this. They need a 2/3 majority, yes vote, to hit the ground running. And I stand up there with them, and they voted no on some projects that I've kind of thrown out. But to just demonstrate critical thinking is a skill that we build over a lifetime. It changes with us, 100%. But we're always learning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How do you stay sharp? You read a lot,
Oh, I do read a lot. You're asking an English teacher that question.
so
I do read a lot.
you never know.
I listen to a ton of podcasts. We were just talking about this. I miss the like hive mind of being in college where your professor says, go home and read this thing and we're going to come back and talk about it. And you come to class and you're like, whoa, never thought about it from that perspective. I miss those opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
So I listen to a lot of podcasts where I can just flip the script and think about something from a new perspective. But I try to find good people, like pick them out of the community, join book clubs, or show up at the Science on Tap at the Ordoc and just see what's happening.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do you have kind of a community that you're a part of, or a gathering, or a group that you're involved with?
I do the Black Rocks Book Club.
Okay.
I have found there's about 4 or 5 educators where we just meet and we're like, what's good? What's going on? What's new? What are you hearing? I'm part of the Marquette Alger Reading Council. So books, teaching, teachers talking about books and teaching. It's really nerdy, but yeah,
Legit. Put the glasses on.
for sure. For sure.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
That's important to not just have it be work, right? To like actually find joy in the things that you're teaching, that you're talking about.
For sure.
Because otherwise, it's not fun when you're teaching anymore. If you're not doing it, like we talked about balance,
Yep.
right? If there's not balance to that, if you're doing a job that at one time you're like, oh man, I'm about this, like I'm practicing this all the time, and then you keep doing that job, and you don't keep practicing, and you don't keep on
It
that
kind of
grind,
feels stale. Like you get to a point like there's nothing new here. I have nothing to throw in, no new ideas. Oh, for sure.
it gets stale,
Yeah.
like old
Like
bread.
I was just saying, like an old bread. Yeah. Yep.
You ever try to eat old bread?
It's the stuff you feed to the birds.
Yeah, people are like, no, get this out of here. We don't want this old bread.
Okay, so imagine taking your old bread, personal training.
Okay.
A client is going to know that. They're going to feel like this is not new,
They feel it right away.
and your passion isn't going to be there. So walk into a room full of teenagers who can be ruthless with some old bread.
No way.
They know.
They're not having
They
it.
smell that. Yeah, no, they are not having that. Exactly.
So that's where the confidence is derived, is the integrity of the discipline.
Okay.
Yeah?
I like that. Yeah. Okay.
That's as far as, I mean, I'm trying to imagine walking into a room of high school kids. I mean, I do it, but I'm in wrestling shoes, and we're talking about things I can talk about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I have no issues talking about how to take somebody down. No issues. How to lock your hands,
You
where to
got
keep
that?
what, yeah, where your head goes. It's simple, right?
Yeah.
And it's just got to be that with whatever you do. It can be talking about books. You're reading books.
It is like stepping onto a stage. And so if there's something that we're adding in that I've never taught before, I preface it with, I am learning with you. Raise your hand, ask me questions, call me out, give me a little sticky note that says, hey, check out this article I found. And let it be really transparent. But yeah, definitely do my homework before I step in front of those kids. They can smell it. They're like, oh, she's not prepared today. They can tell. Changes the whole dynamic.
Right.
It's that energy.
So being a leader, like I'm truly being a leader, do you ever feel like there's pressure on you? Do you ever feel like there's, where's the pressure come from?
Oh, I think that totally depends on who you ask. I would say mine is definitely intrinsic. I'm very hard on myself. Something I bring to my yoga practice all the time. Giving myself a little grace, not beating myself up. But I do think being an educator, you're a public figure, so there is an expectation that you uphold as an educator. I enjoy that. I'd love to be that positive role model. For some people, that's just not their cup of tea.
Yeah. Have you ever been asked some real hard questions from the kids?
Yeah, I mean, so I've taught a myriad of subjects. So hard questions in English are very different than hard questions in health, and I've done cooking and nutrition. So,
Yeah, I'm talking more like, hey, like this is my life right now. What do I do? You know what I mean?
oh,
Like
absolutely.
kids coming to you with like some real stuff.
For sure. So, the first part is to acknowledge that it is their truth. Before you can ever, like, you don't jump to giving them advice because this is what it is. So you listen and you say, I hear what you're saying, or this is what it sounds like you're saying. Then there are, let's connect you with forms of support. Do you have other teachers? Have you talked to your guidance counselor?
You ask questions.
Exactly. What does support at home look like? What's your friend group look like? When you leave here, are you safe? Do you have food? Do you know where you're going? So just like the foundational groundwork. But then you check up with that kid over and over and over. And maybe sometimes to the point where they're like, yo, Miss Dye, I'm good. You don't have to mother me anymore. But the first part is to just listen and let it be. Like, it is their truth. It's what they're living right now. And it does. It's just, I'm laughing at the synchronicity of the conversation I had last week with my students. I had a professor at Northern use the phrase invisible knapsack. We all have one. They're the experiences, the concepts, the people, the places, everything that shapes who we are. We carry it around with us. No one else sees it, but we know it's there. We can't expect anyone else to see it unless we tell them, and vice versa. but we can't pretend that we all have the same experiences and come from the same perspective and slip the same lens on every day. So we had that conversation with my students of, I don't know what you come to class with and no one else does. So here's this set of language that we're going to use that levels the playing field, builds respect. But after that conversation, they start to realize, like, my experiences are my experiences. I have a different truth than you do. And then we start writing about it. And so that's when some of this heavier stuff comes out.
Right.
And then we can talk about, like, own your heavy. Now, how do we dig through it?
Own it. Right.
Yep.
And I think that's a beautiful truth too, to understand, to have empathy
Mm-hmm.
that, hey, you had no idea what somebody's been through today. And you could be talking to them every day and they come in one day and they just got done dancing through a meadow and they come in the next
Like a
day,
unicorn?
right? And they just come in the next day and a fridge fell on their mom.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
no.
You had no idea. You have no idea. And so to expect consistency out of people, that can be dangerous. That can be dangerous, especially, man, people ask you how you're doing. You always say the same thing?
Depends on who asks me. Or, and I think you've gotten this before, can I answer you honestly? I'll tell you I'm doing
Wow.
well, or could I answer you honestly?
You ask people that?
I do.
That's
I do.
legit.
And, I mean, not everybody. A stranger on the street asks me how I'm doing, I'm just going to say I'm well.
Right.
You ask me how I'm doing when I walk in the yoga studio, can I answer you honestly?
Right.
Because part of that is the ownness of,
Do we
like,
have time for this?
right, yeah, how much time you got.
Right.
But also if I'm having a heavy day and I share it with you, my heavy becomes your heavy for 30 seconds, a minute, however long that phone or that
And
conversation
potentially
lasts.
longer depending on the fortitude of the other person.
Exactly. So acknowledging when I'm having a good day, I want to share that good day. But if I'm having maybe a not so great day, it's a great way to just ask, like, do you really want to know? Because I'll tell you.
Mm-hmm.
But then we've got to share this experience where I'm assuming you'll extend some empathy. But yeah, I might share something that's a little heavier than you were ready for.
Maybe something more than you were asking for.
Exactly.
Right. So
Exactly.
that's important. We got to be careful what we're saying. I think what's up is always like kind of that typical
Yeah.
good.
Well, I was gonna say, so someone just asked me what's up, I'm gonna be like, yeah, I'm good. How are you? You
Right.
know. But if someone makes eye contact and says, how are you today? Very different than what's up in passing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's a really great or not tactic, but just a technique to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Stay true.
For sure. For sure.
So what's next, Mandy Dye? What do you got on the hopper?
Oh, jeez. So many things.
Yeah, you got a
So
big
many things.
idea. What's your big idea?
Oh man, what's my big idea? Are we talking occupationally? Are we talking like running? Are we like, what are we talking here? Break this
Yeah,
down.
yeah. Well, where do you want to start? Isn't it all kind of coming together? Doesn't it all come together at some point?
Are you asking me that?
I don't know. It's kind of a insinuating question. Does your big idea all come together?
Oh, there we go. That's right. I thought you just meant like in general. I was like, I don't know. I'm still waiting for that to happen. Okay, so do my ideas come together? I mean, at some point, yeah.
Yeah.
I would hope so. Um, so immediate future, just digging the school year. Students are awesome. Awesome bunch of kids. Just really enjoying the day to day right now. But making some plans to meet up with my best friend. She lives in San Francisco, and every year we pick a location and we fly there and we spend a weekend. So we're making that plan right now. Maybe Thanksgiving. It may be Christmas break. It's got to be one of those two because we're getting to the end of 2019 here and I haven't
Correct.
seen her yet. But then we're also playing around with a spring break trip just to see each other. It's so good for the soul to spend some time with her. I started a kind of subsidiary teaching job that will allow me to travel in the summer. Looking forward to that. But I'm also in year 4 of teaching here, and I had this 5-year plan when I left Montana to, in 5 years, be back in the mountains. Not necessarily Montana. If it's Montana, that would be thrilling because it's definitely one of my homes. So always kind of continually working toward am I keeping that dream alive? Do I still want that? Like, is that still relevant for me? Um, yeah, still writing, playing around with adding to my blog. Most of the writing that's featured on there right now is from 2015 to 2018. I think there's one entry that is 2019. So it's been this like mass reflection on the last 5 years. There's a little fear in sharing some of the stuff that's current, that's so raw, but I think there's power in that too.
For
So
sure.
just, yeah, making some headway with getting some of that out there. You never know who you're going to connect with. If you're honest about the stuff that you're going through, or the connections you've made, just throwing it out there could be someone else's lifeline. So
Big time.
finding the courage to get out there with it. Yeah. Loving making videos. I've got a couple YouTube videos of my Western adventures, playing around with the idea of maybe doing something a little more with that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's legit.
it is.
You know, that's cool. I was not aware of your 5-year plan, and that's interesting.
Oh,
I had the same kind of idea.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, how many years are you into your 5 year plan?
Well, it's just been disbound. I just disbounded the 5-year plan.
It's like unspiraling.
Right.
Okay.
It was to be here until I was 25,
And how old are you?
23.
Okay.
And it's just been, let go of that idea. And it's been like super liberating
For sure.
to let go of that deadline
Mm-hmm.
or some kind of idea that needs to take place before that happens.
Like these things need to be checked off before you can. Yeah.
That's daunting.
So, have you taken a more philosophical, if you will, approach to I will just know when it's ready to make some moves, and here's where I think I'd like to go or what I'd like to do,
Right.
or
Right. And yes, the answer to that question is yes. It's simple. People don't want to hear this answer, and I don't necessarily always want to hear this answer either, but you know when you know,
you do.
right? So that's kind of the moment
Yeah.
I'm waiting for, or I'm in right now, and I know
Mm-hmm.
I want to be here right now.
For sure. And you will know 100%. Like if it's meant to be, it will be. You're gonna get a push
Mm-hmm.
to do something next, whatever that something is.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And recently it's been to call this place home. Like very powerful,
And it's a good place to be.
right?
It is. Yeah, that is an idea that, again, I've taken to the yoga mat of do I need to adhere to this 5 year timeline, or is it a spend some more time just doing what is life giving, which for right now is teaching and enjoying the
Yeah.
friends that I have here and traveling when I can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that kind of goes along with the question I asked about competition motivating you.
Oh, okay.
Because these deadlines that we put on things, these
Mm-hmm.
intrinsic pressures that we put on ourselves to get things done,
Yeah.
almost come of a place of procrastination or organization in our mind as to how busy we should be in pursuing certain tasks in these like material pursuits of certification, knowledge,
Yeah.
different acknowledgments or recognition. And really, it's a pursuit of recognition rather than fulfillment. Whoa, that was loaded.
No, it is. It is. And no, it just made me think. So if I go back to your earlier question, I think I said I'm not like for me, I'm not quite sure like what the source of motivation is, and it made me think that my last couple of races, I was sponsored by Queen City Running, and so as you were explaining
Shout
what you were
out.
saying, yeah, Queen City,
Queen City Marquette. Go ahead.
but as you were explaining this, I was like, wait a second. Was this a fulfilling experience? Would I have run those races had someone not been like, hey, I've got this voucher. Want a race? I don't know. Because again, like I love the training
Right.
so much. And I
Right.
don't often feel the need to like get on the start line and prove to myself that I can do this. But when I'm done, I'm just like, yeah, I
Right.
just did that. So you're unraveling my earlier statement,
It's very
which is okay.
interesting.
But now I'm playing around with this idea of like, how does competition fulfill me or running fulfill me? Yeah.
And also the wanderlust,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Wanderlust, right? Is there a question mark or a curiosity over your head that you find can't be answered here, that you have to go somewhere else to answer a question about yourself?
That's like a mic drop moment. Sorry, that was a good question. So, I'm going to tell you a little anecdote. I don't remember how old I was, but I remember sitting in an assembly in middle school. maybe high school. I think it was middle. Assembly in school. I was young, impressionable. That's what matters. There's this person who came in, very, very adventurous, right? Talking to us about getting out of a small town, which, shout out to small towns, I am from one. And I remember thinking that is so cool, but I could never do that because I'm scared to leave. Like that was my thought pattern is I'd love to do that. And then immediately I was like, nope, can't leave. This is home. These are my people. Came to Northern, and I don't know if I've ever verbalized this to my family, so cat's out of the bag now. But I came so far away because it was the furthest I could be from home in the same state to create a source of independence because I realized that who I was, the experiences that I had, even some of my beliefs and ideals were a collection of things that were given to me by my family structure. Okay? So Northern was the first big push for that. And then I remember the first time I told my dad, I'm going to buy a one-way plane ticket to Seattle. I don't really know when I'm going to be back. This was in May with my best friend again. He's probably thinking she's not such a great role model. But I'm going to go to Seattle. We're going to spend a few weeks and we're going to find a way to get back. And that moment of realizing that I was no longer a collection of experiences solely from home, where I grew up, and that I could be my own creation, that's kind of become that question mark of like, what's out there? Because when you travel, you meet new people with diverse ideas, with knowledge that you know nothing about. And if you sit and make yourself available, you can learn through them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just like having a conversation. So I think that's kind of that impending question mark you were asking about of being wanderlust. Is there something about myself that I could learn through travel? And absolutely. I don't know what they are yet. I kind of reflect on them later, but 100% there's something you can learn about yourself.
Yeah. It kind of shakes off the complacency
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
because it shakes you up.
It
You know?
does. And I would say the last few times I've went out, I knew there were places I wanted to go, but how I got there and on the time schedule didn't matter as much as just enjoying the process of getting there. And they've been some of the most meaningful trips I've taken because I remember or met people from certain places and I just slowed down to like let it soak in a little bit. Yeah.
And this can be done traveling or not.
Well, you had mentioned like certificates or pursuing education. For some of us, it is a journey in education as well that stacks on all of those experiences.
It's pretty cool. I really like how you can put these things into words. The vocabulary just comes naturally. It's really cool.
Is it?
Yeah,
Oh, well, thank you.
absolutely. How can people learn more about kind of what you're doing and what you're all about? Do you want to give any kind of acknowledgement to the blog or where people can find that, social media shout outs, sponsors, the whole thing?
Look at you with your. I mean, I'm on Facebook and I'm on Instagram. And my blog is called Circling Back. It's a Wix site, so it's Googleable. You can find it.
Is it a link on your Instagram
It is a link on my Instagram.
and Facebook?
I don't know if those are all talking
Do you want to
to
share?
each other.
Do you want to share any of that?
I can.
It's up to you.
Yeah, I mean, so for sure, I would love for it to be out there, and I can. Are you on Instagram?
I am. So let's say I'm a random person. How
Yeah.
would I find your stuff? That's the only reason I'm asking.
No, that's fine. So on Instagram, I am Mandy13, just Mandy Dye. You'll find me on there. Link to Circling Back blog is in my Instagram. I'm also on Facebook. That's probably the easiest way. Otherwise, send me a message. Just ask.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. It's been an hour.
Has it?
Very cool hour.
Nice. Awesome. Thank you.
So thanks for being here.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Until next time, guys. Ride the waves, dude.